Let's rock.
All right, so now we are learning about being crushed by the galus, and that should make the world a different place. We have to be crushed by the galus. Crushed. What does this mean? What does it mean? You remember we learned that? Well, what does it mean to be crushed by the galus? A person is crushed when he feels he's got a responsibility to do something, and that he's got the ability to do it, and it's in his hands somehow or other to do something, but he knows he has to do something to alleviate the situation somehow or other, maybe even to run away. He's crushed by it. Let's take the example of the Jews that were in Germany in the time of the Holocaust, right? The ones that knew about it, what was happening. So they were realizing, we have to do something. Maybe we should just run away. Is there any way we can stop? If someone would come and say, listen, you can stop the whole situation. All you have to do is sit and learn Torah, and for sure the whole thing will go away. So people would learn Torah. I mean, if you could trust the person that said that, if you give me advice, that he feels crushed by the situation. Now let's take the example like this Corona thing we got now. You can't do anything. Nobody knows what to do. Everybody's giving different advice. Maybe there's nothing you can do whatsoever. So you're not exactly crushed by the situation. It's not something that you can do anything about. Some people feel tremendously broken because of that, because they can't do anything. They're stuck in their house. They can't do anything to improve the situation. A human being needs responsibility. Responsibility is a very essential thing. A person that doesn't have any responsibility for anything, so he's not in good shape. Let's see, maybe I'll turn this off, see what happens. Oh, that's not bad. Huh? Facing this good.
Looks good.
Just 1 second. If so, let me just do one thing over here. There we go. All right. So a person that hasn't got any responsibility, so on one hand, you can say one of two things. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. Just sit around and do nothing. You can't do anything anyway. It doesn't make no purpose. Or you can say, that I'll just do whatever I want to. I have no responsibility. But if a person does have responsibility and he knows that he must do something, and he's not doing it, then that should make the person crushed. He really feels the responsibility, but he's just not doing what he's supposed to. So that's what the Rebbe wants to instill in us. That the Jewish people were put into the world, we're chosen. The Jewish people are chosen. God chose us. If we refuse to admit it, refuse to reveal it, or we refuse to identify with it, so the non-Jews will remind us. But for some strange reason, this thing of being a Jew, no matter how much the Jews want to get rid of it, and perhaps the most successful effort to do so was, ideally was the Zionism. The Jews tried to assimilate, they tried to get them, but it didn't work. Herzl saw in Vienna and the Dreyfus trials didn't work. So they got this idea, we're going to make our own country, then we're going to be like everybody else. It doesn't help. No matter what they do, the Jews always, it pops up. Why? Because the Jews are responsible for the whole world. And as long as the whole world is not the way it's supposed to be, so the Jews are shirking the responsibility, or they're unaware of the responsibility, or they're mistaken about their identity, or they're unconscious of it. And that idea is the idea of what we call tshuva, returning. A person returns to consciousness. He returns to his responsibility to the world. That's truly the idea of what the Jews are here for. God purposely created the world in such a way that it's a world. And a world, we have free choice, and we can choose to rebel against God. We can choose to deny that there's a creator. And so the job of the Jews is supposed to be to remind the whole world, to tell the non-Jews how much God loves them. He's creating them. Every creation is created by God. Everything has this godly potential, infinite potential. And if the Jews don't do that, So the world is all confused. So the responsibility, therefore, is upon those people who do feel the responsibility. We can't blame another person, says, because of you. Blaming and pointing your finger, that's part of the problem. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to activate ourselves to do more. What are we supposed to do more? How am I supposed to conquer the whole world? What, get on television? Or what am I supposed to do? So the Rebbe says very simple. A person is just, first of all, supposed to have the attitude, and that I have to do something. When I learn Torah, when I do a commandment, when I do a good deed, when I wake up in the morning, when I make a blessing, that everything has to be with this intention that I'm trying to make a little light that will push away all this darkness. And a little light does push away darkness. So the Rebbe brings the example from what happened in Purim, the holiday of Purim. In the holiday of Purim, we see that the Jews had basically given up on Judaism. They gave up. There was supposed to be the redemption. The Purim happened after the destruction of the first temple, about 70 years after the destruction of the first temple. And there was a prophecy that the Jews were supposed to return back to Israel, where the temple was supposed to be rebuilt after 70 years of exile. And according to their calculations and the calculations of the king, Achashverosh, etc., the Gemara in Megillah explains in great length what exactly the mistakes were. There were several different calculations when the 70 years was. It was very important to everybody to know when the 70 years was. Because they all believed in God, and they all knew that God was with the Jews, and they all knew that the Jews had basically left God. And the first temple had been destroyed, and they thought that was, maybe that was the end of Judaism. So they were impatiently awaiting this 70-year date to see if a miracle happened, and it didn't happen, according to their calculations. So all the Jews left Judaism, and they got ingratiated with the king, and they were really riding high. And came this tremendously terrible decree, the worst decree ever in the history of the Jewish people, to destroy all the Jews in one day. And all the Jews had to do was say, I'm not Jewish, and they wouldn't be in any danger. And there was not one Jew in the course of a full year, it says, that even thought to deny his Judaism. And that was self-sacrifice. And because of that self-sacrifice, it even makes the statement that was the first time the Jews ever really accepted the Torah. The Torah had been given 1,000 years earlier at Mount Sinai, and this was the first time that it ever happened, that the Jews really accepted the Torah. Okay, let's look and see here. Let's do paragraph tet. We did it before, but I think it's worth doing again. Actually, I think it's worth doing everything at least twice. Let's do chapter tet again, because we did it last time. Let's do it again. Last time, I think it wasn't recorded also. So. Paragraph 9. Oh, we should bring this up, right? We should bring it up on the thing. Bring it up. Let's see if we can do it. I'm sorry for the big delay. Can we bring it up? Nah. I don't know how to do it over here. Gotta bring it up 1 second. Excuse me. Let me see if I can do this quickly. If not, then we'll just go on with what we have.
You just have to open the file, then go to share screen, and you'll.
I have to open the file first, right.
First, you have to open the file.
Not only that, my whole screen has been somehow or other spread a little bit so that I can't. I don't have access to the whole picture. I can't get. All right. Hi, my friends, what are we going to do? I just can't get out of this page that I'm on. I did this share thing, and now I can't get rid of it.
You opened the file in a separate window, right?
No, I didn't open it up. I'm getting out of here. 1 second.
Just click again on share screen. It should close it. Or
I can't get to it.
there's an X. It's hidden. Are you in full screen? Exit full screen. In the upper right-hand corner, there's like
Here's share screen.
you want to. You don't want to be in full screen. You want to exit full screen first of all.
There, I exited full screen. Good.
Okay, now you should be able to see the things that you're looking at.
No. First of all, I have this big picture of the shared screen, and I can't get out of it.
There's a little X in the corner.
I have to believe you, but I don't see it. My screen has become enlarged so that I can't. There. Oh, I hit it. I got it. All right. Okay. I can't minimize the zoom. Please, maybe you can try it. Just look and find. I just can't get. I can't. Everything I press.
Send me the link. Send me the link for.
That's what I want to get. I want to get to the link, and I can't get to it. I can't get out of this picture that I'm here.
Well, on my screen, I see your face. I see you nicely. So maybe just read to us.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do because I have no choice. I'm sorry. All right. Tet, hine kativ, it is written, akatuv, this sentence where it says, Kibula Yehudim et asher echil lasot, that what it says that the Jews finally accepted what they began to do. This is talking about the time after the miracle of Purim. What did we say? We said that when the Jews were crushed by Haman and they refused to deny their Judaism, that self-sacrifice was what brought about this sentence, this amazing sentence that says that the Jews for the first time in 1,000 years accepted the Torah. The first time since the Torah was given, the Jews had never really accepted it. When did they accept it? When did they really fulfill the Torah? In the holiday of Purim, 1,000 years later. Why? Because they had this tremendous self-sacrifice for their Judaism. Says the Rebbe, but if you look really closely, you'll see that this sentence that talks about the Jews accepting the Torah for the first time, this was after the miracle of Purim, after they did not require self-sacrifice. This was after everything calmed down and there was no pressure on them, and the Jews had won all the battles. The day after Purim, when the Jews had already been victorious, there was no pressure from the outside. And that's when it says that the Jews accepted the Torah for the first time. Not when they were under pressure. After the pressure was gone. And so that seems to contradict everything that the Rebbe has said in the Maimer. That the only way that the Jew can really express his true Jewishness, namely that he feels his responsibility to change the whole world, to stand up for the Creator, instead of being so loyal to the creation, was when the Jew is crushed. That's when he really gets the point of the Torah. Now the Rebbe is saying, but it's not so. If you look in the Megillah, that it contradicts what I just finished saying. The Megillah says clearly that the Jews, when was it that the Jews really got the point of the Torah? After the miracle of Purim, when there was no pressure, when they didn't have to sacrifice their lives to declare their Judaism. That's when they received the Torah. That's when they revealed their essence. How can that be? Says the Rebbe, Yesh Lomar, we can say, that what it says in the Maimer, the Pirish v'Kibla Yehudim et Asher Echel Lasot, was in the days of Achashverosh, they received what they began in Mount Torah, Hugam Lafi Pashtos HaKasuv. This is also according to the simple meaning that it was after the miracle. Two types of revelation of the Jewish soul. One was when the Jewish people were crushed from the outside, And the other one is when this crushing is gone. What could that be? When the crushing was gone? We'll see. Alpis, that's referring to now. Alpis, according to this, that which in the days of Achashverosh they accepted. What they began in Matan Torah, there were two things. First of all, that they accepted the Torah that was in the time of the decree of Haman, by means of their self-sacrifice they had for their Judishness. That they refused to deny they were Jews. On punishment of death, they didn't care. They said, I'm a Jew. That's tremendous self-sacrifice. That's one level of receiving the Torah. But then there was a Kabbalah, there's also the accepting of the Torah, Shayata, that was La'achre, after Hanes, the Purim, the miracle of Purim. Shehi Nalid Yota, this is even higher, Gamia Kabbalah Bizaman Agazerum, even higher than the decree, than the accepting of the Torah they did when they were under pressure. So the Jews accepted the Torah for the first time in two different ways. One time was when they were being crushed by the decree, and another time was after they were not being crushed by the decree. There was no crushing. Okay, but that's not what we just finished saying. We just finished 8 paragraphs explaining that a Jew only reveals his true essence when he's crushed. And now we're saying that the Jews accepted the Torah in Purim when they were crushed, and also after, when there was no pressure on them whatsoever. We can say, so it is also the idea of being crushed. When the Jews are crushed, that's what puts out their true light. In the Katit, that by means of the fact that Jews are crushed in the time of exile, like it was in Purim, Megim Lamor, they reach the light. They reach the true light, the true Jewish identity. The Shnei Yanyanim is there. There are two things in this. When the Jews are found in a situation of being crushed, because because there are decrees against doing Torah and the commandments, like it was in the time of Haman, and like it was in the time of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he said this mimer in 1927, the original mimer, the original discourse that the previous Rebbe gave in 1927. Also, there was a terrible decree against doing Torah and commandments in Russia. It was said in Russia. By means of this, by means of this, he can reach the source of light by means of the self-sacrifice, like the previous Rebbe did. But there's something higher. There's another idea of what it means to be crushed for the illuminator, Shagam Kashi Israel. Even when the Jewish people Nimtzim are found in a way of harchava, even when the Jewish people are in a way of plenty, calmness, how do you say comfort? Harchava bagashmis, the gam harchava barufni is when Jewish people they have everything they need physically and everything they need spiritually. Even in the time when all the Jewish people, they're learning the Torah, but they know that they are found in exile. Al derech hamatzav, like it was after the miracle of Purim, that the Jews were or of a simcha, of a sason, the akor, and also spiritually. And even more than that, it says, Gam Beit Haman Nitan Lester. See, like how Jews, even religious Jews, they're living the whole world in basic comfort. I mean, there's no enemies. No, you can learn Torah anywhere you want to. I think in even Iran, you can learn Torah. Any place where it's any place where there are Jews can learn Torah. They can learn Torah. There's no. Once in a while, it's anti-Semitism, but there's no basic problems, not spiritually and not physically. But then in the time after the miracle of Purim, the Jews are like they are now in America and England and Israel. The Jews were okay. There was no problem. Not only that, even more than okay. It says that the house of Haman was given to Esther. Everything was transformed. Suddenly the Jews were the highest. It says, Rabbi Ami Oretz Misyadim. It says in the Megillah, many non-Jews wanted to convert. According to some opinions, they weren't accepting converts. Jews weren't accepting converts in those days. Why? Because a convert is supposed to be a person that he wants to get closer to God. Not just that he wants to be on the winning side. Found a nice looking Jewish girl, or he wants to be on the basketball team, Israeli basketball team, or something like that. So then that's not a real convert. A convert is supposed to be a person that he wants to come close to God. Not because of any practical. So if a non-Jew wants to convert when the Jews are being pursued, that's a real convert. Why would he want to join the suffering people? Because he doesn't care about the suffering. He wants to come closer to God. That's, in a way, that's the ideal Jew, a convert. But if he wants to convert just because he's got something to gain from it, that's not really a convert. And that's why according to some opinions, they weren't accepting converts after Purim. This is in the Megillah, a lot of non-Jews wanted to convert. But it was so good for the Jews then. They had so much plenty and so much, how do you say, the calm and prosperity. They were accepted by everyone, respected by everyone. Says there were no problems. Says that was the time when the Jews were crushed. What was they crushed about? Let me just finish the paragraph. I'll just finish the paragraph. 3 more lines. Then with this, but the problem is that even now we are the servants of Achashverosh. That's why I said that on Purim we don't say Hallel, because the fact is that no matter how much plenty we have, physically, spiritually, the countries are helping us. They're helping us to build synagogues. You can do whatever you want to. The Kotel is open, right? People can roam around up there in Harabayas if they want to go there. Right? But the fact is there's no holy temple. That should make us crushed. We are crushed from the fact that we are in Gullus. Some people say, what are you talking about? We have the land of Israel. We have our own army. Look, you can go up in the Harabayat. There's a couple of fools in the Knesset that don't allow us to go, but here we're free. We're learning Torah. We're doing this. No problem. Says that should make you the most crushed, more crushed than before. There's no holy temple. Jewish identity is confused totally. That should make us so crushed, al yedei katiti Yisrael, and by the fact that the Jewish people are crushed in the fact that we are in exile, megim l'ma'or, that can reach the me'or. That can reach the source of light. Yes, now a question.
Yeah, aren't we kind of living right now in what you might call the ongoing curse of Napoleon? Yeah, we can study Torah all we want, but look what's really happening. Assimilation in the West, I mean, that personally crushes me. I mean, people are going up to the Temple Mount. They're making their own rules. They're studying Torah, but yet they're moving away from it. I've read also that even during the period between after the Purim story, there was a great problem with intermarriage in amongst the Jews, and there was a big problem. The Malachi brought them to back to build a second temple. He forced them to get rid of their alien wives. In America, there's a big problem with
I don't know. Listen, I don't know if the main problem with the intermarriage was in the land of Israel. That's when it was. There was a big problem with intermarriage. This whole miracle here happened in Shushan, which I guess was like Persia today. Right? That happened in Persia, Praz. I think that's where it was. But when they came back, when Ezra brought everybody back to Israel, he discovered that the Jews in Israel had given up, and the Jews in Israel had intermarried with the non-Jews that were here.
Well, even if we look at America,
sure, no problem. You don't have to look at
more freedom to study Torah. As you said, anybody can study Torah. But what are they doing? They're marrying shiksas.
You don't have to go so far to Israel. You just come to the Holy Land. You see that there's LGBT parades.
Oh yeah, unbelievable.
There's
this is crushing.
All over the place. We're giving the land back to the Arabs. Okay, but let's say that it wasn't so. Let's say it was not so. let's say that we stood, I mean, those are clear signs, right? But let's say it wasn't clear signs. Let's say they had a new government, a religious government, and they said, that's it. We're kicking on no more LGBT parades. You want to do it, and don't do it in the Holy Land. Really, you shouldn't do it anywhere, and etc. Okay, everything, and they kicked out all the missionaries, and then this. Now everybody can learn Torah. Everybody can, and they all get inspired. Says the Rebbe, that's still gullus. It still is exile. We're still in exile. I mean, that's like in the first temple. Take an example. The first temple, there was revelation of God everywhere, and this, and still somehow or other internally there was the exile. It's not declared to be exiled because we did have the first temple, and there was the chance. The second temple, we did have the temple. There was the chance to just fix everything up like this, but they didn't. Now it says the Rebbe, there's no temple. That should be the biggest scream of all of the essence of our souls. That there's all these symptoms that pop up with these crazy parades and the intermarriages and the missionaries and all these things. Those are just symptoms. Those are just symptoms. To get rid of the symptoms does not get rid of the disease. The Rebbe is going to say that what's the disease? That God is not revealed. That's the disease. The disease is that Hashem is not revealed. That's the disease. And all these other things, how the government does and that the Arabs are here and they're giving them land. That's just symptoms. That's just painting it over. There were, ultra-Orthodox, what do you want to call it, Jews that they figured that's the way we have to deal with the symptoms. We have to deal with the symptoms, and we have to get rid of. There was the Rabbi Kahana. He was a very genuine person, but he didn't deal with the spirituality. He dealt with the symptoms. That there's Arabs here, and we can't let Arab. He's not going to get rid of it. He's not going to get rid of it. The only way to fix it up, and that's what the Rebbe said, the only way to fix it up is you have to do it spiritually. You have to make Jews realize what God is. You have to make Jews reveal their responsibility. The responsibility to the Creator and the responsibility to the creation. Because that's why God is called the Creator. Because He makes the world all the time. And our job is that we're supposed to feel crushed, that we're supposed to do our job and that we're not doing it, or we're not doing it sufficiently, or we are doing it and for some reason it's just not working out. Now you can say, well, listen, I mean, what do you want from me? I'm just one person. Come on, look at all these other jokers sitting over there in the Knesset making all these crazy laws, and there's non-Jews sitting in the Knesset deciding our fate. Nobody said anything bad about them. Not even Rabbi Cook never said anything against the non-Jews sitting in the Knesset. Gewalt, how could there be such a thing like that, right? So nobody said, but that's not our problem. That's not our problem, is the political views and the problem is that me, there's one problem, and that problem is me. It's not him, it's not them, it's not the Knesset, it's not the Zionism, it's not this. That's not the problem. There's one problem in the whole thing, and that's me, my attitude. My attitude. And if I would really change my attitude, that's what the Rebbe is saying. Even one person would really change his attitude totally, right? Totally. But we have all sorts of things that hold us back with him. The Rebbe is not trying to make us understand that the problem is out there and, to realize what it is. Listen, the symptoms are certainly out there. The symptoms are certainly out there telling us that we have a big, big disease. And who is the big disease? It's me. I'm the disease. I'm the problem.
Doesn't everybody kind of know that? Everybody knows that the LBG and the macaroni virus and also assimilation, those are all symptoms. Everybody knows that.
I don't know. I'm not so sure. I think there's a lot of people. First of all, there's a lot of people that say that it's not a symptom of anything. It's just a passing thing, and it'll. As far as I know, there is no one in the Knesset that is against these any of these things. I don't think there's anyone in the Knesset that has spoken up and said, we can't have the missionaries in Israel. We can't have these LGBT. You can't give land to the Arabs. We have to. I don't think there's anybody that says this, even from the furthest right parties. Once in a while they yell it out for their constituents, but that doesn't really bother them. But if the Rebbe says, even if it does bother them, right, that's at least the symptoms. But what's the cause of the whole thing, says the Rebbe? That people aren't connected to Hashem, or more exactly, not people, that I'm not connected. I, Tuvia Bolton, am not connected to Hashem. And that's the whole problem. There is no other problem. There is no other solution. That's the basis of the whole thing.
Well, isn't
Rabbi,
that what we need a Mashiach for?
What?
Isn't that what?
Yes.
We have the wrong attitude. What is that wrong attitude? And more important, what is the right attitude?
Right. So the Rebbe says the wrong attitude is complacency. And the
Okay.
right attitude is I have to do, I have to say, I have to think something a little bit more. This should be riding on my mind all the time. How can I get out of this problem? How can I get out of the problem? What's going to be? Like they have in America, they just had these big riots. What do they have, the big riots? There was some sort of a problem. There was some sort of problem. I heard from somebody, a professor, and it was very, very, very astute what he said. So that now in the universities, almost all the universities in America, they teach the pupils, I guess only in the humanities, probably in science it's not that way, but in the humanities, to look for grievances. Grievances. If you have grievances, right, you blame it all on capitalism. You blame it all on the government. You blame it all on Netanyahu, on Trump, on something. Grievances. You find grievances. That's like the basis of, if you read the Das Kapital, the Marx, grievances. The people have to raise up. We have to conquer. We have to overcome. We have to overthrow. The problem is the other guy. The problem is the other guy. He's the problem. But what's the problem? Problem is, look for a problem. You'll find something. Find something. And then you find this problem, you blame it on the other guy. You blame it on the guy. Well, we're supposed to also have our grievance. We're all supposed to have our grievance. But we don't blame it on the other guy. We blame it on ourselves. What's the grievance, says the Rebbe? That there's no godliness in the world. This should crush us. But crush us doesn't mean we have to be sad. And if we are, you do it alone in your house for 5 seconds. Right? It means that you have to be practical. You have to be practical. What's going on? Somebody has to take, like we learned about Pinchas, somebody has to take the spear in his hand and go out and kill the enemy. The problem is, who is the enemy? The enemy is me. The enemy is not that other guy. It's not the leftists and the Chilonim and this. That's not the problem. The Rebbe wants to say the whole problem is me. I'm not happy enough. I'm not positive enough. I'm not productive enough. I'm wasting my time.
It's like we're living in two different worlds. We're living within our macro world, and we're living in the world that we can control, the world of our family, the world that's within our 4 amos. But then there's a larger world. On Wall Street, there's a saying: when the escalator goes up, all the stocks go up. And the world is sort of like going in an opposite direction from us. I can fix my 4 amos, but in the real world, I can't, affect political. I can't correct foreign policy in the United States. Mashiach is somebody that can do that, and to remove also, all the systematic problems that we have, these big symptoms like the LBGQT. As much as I can, try to protect my family from it, it takes a Mashiach. It takes a leader to stand up, as Moshe did at the time of the golden calf, and said, you have to go strap on a sword and kill your brother.
So this,
I'm not in a position to do that to anybody, and I don't know anybody who is, but we ask for somebody to do that.
Here, this is the words of the Mashiach. Here it is. This is it. These are the words of the Mashiach. This is Torah to Mashiach. This is telling us what to do. Everyone would love to, how did the Beatles say, you want to make a revolution? If you're talking about destruction, you can count me out. Everybody wants to figure out their own way. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go. We can't take God out of this formula.
Of course not.
No. In other words, we do a little bit, God will do a lot. That's the whole idea. It's not that if I'm going to sit and learn Torah, then somebody's going to pass by my house and he's going to hear me and he'll learn Torah, or something will happen. We're saying you do what you're supposed to do. Hashem will do the rest.
Well, I know from my own experiences life, and I think you've experienced the same because you knew the Rebbe. I've had also experience with a charismatic leader, and I know that a real leader can motivate you to move and do things way beyond what you ever thought you were capable of.
Yes, that's right. That's what the Rebbe wants to do.
And, well, it's nice in the books, but we need Mashiach. We need a real blood and skin and bones Mashiach who stands up and talks, not from books, but in person.
But see, listen, you're right. Of course, you're right. But you can look at the videos of the Rebbe and you can see the Rebbe. What the Rebbe is demanding from us is a very, very deep and an unusual thing.
The Rebbe's preparing us for Mashiach, no doubt about that. He's making us think about it. He's making us hungry for it. That's
exactly what Mashiach does. That's what Mashiach does. Mashiach is not a magic person. He's going to stand up. He's going to snap his fingers.
Mashiach is a king. A real blood and guts king.
Yes, of course.
A real person.
Yes.
Real people.
But he's going to make us into real people.
Yes.
It's not just that as soon as his persona, right, appears, we see this person, then all of a sudden maybe that's the way it's going to be. Maybe that's the way it's going to be. But for some, that's the way it already was. If you read these books, there's hundreds of books, all the miracles that the Rebbe did, all those amazing things, all the prophecies that he did, and it didn't really affect, in the way that we would expect it to affect. That we wouldn't have any crushing, we wouldn't have any this. This idea of being crushed is a essence of Judaism. This is an essence of Judaism.
Maybe if he was standing up and talking to us right now, in this world, it would make a difference.
I mean, listen, it would be very wonderful. The Rebbe. I'm sure that if the Rebbe appeared today and said, "Here I am," there would be 90% of the Jewish people say it's a trick. It's a trick. It's just not either he was never dead, or this is a double, or let's take DNA credit, and I'm not going to do it anyway. And let him say what he wants to. Forget about it. It's not going to. It wouldn't work.
Well,
the only way it's going to work is when people, they learn Chassidut and they start wondering, like we're wondering now, what am I supposed to do? I want to do something, but what am I supposed to? That's the question that people are supposed to be asking themselves.
Well, maybe also one of the things that we're learning right now is the wisdom to recognize when Moshiach is here, to recognize who Moshiach is when he comes.
Now, the Rambam already says it. There's the criterion are very clear.
We're continuing to learn it.
No. The Rambam is very clear what the criterion is. Anyone who fits those criterion, he's the Mashiach. It has to be somebody who learns Torah, who knows the whole Torah, who does the commandments, who wants to convince all the world to do Torah and commandments, and he fights the battles of Judaism. And anyone who does that is supposedly Mashiach. That's all.
And this is Rambam, right? Rambam, not Rambam.
So
knowing Rambam, it's got to be somebody who's alive in this world.
Yeah, sure, of course. But only the Mashiach is going to be able to do that. And that's what the Mashiach does, right? There's clear criterion, what it is. The Rambam says clearly that if the Mashiach was killed, that disqualifies him. But it doesn't say that if he died. And there's a lot of midrashim and things like that. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin that says the Mashiach, if he comes from the dead, he'll be like Daniel and this. And how it's going to be, there's a lot of opinions that say the Mashiach has to die and then he's going to come back like Moshe went on Sinai and everybody thought he was gone. He came back. That the Arizal says and the Zohar says. There's all these different opinions what it is. The main thing is not all that. The main thing is we have what it says here, and we have to reveal the Mashiach inside of us. That's what the Rebbe said. And what is the Mashiach inside of us? First of all, that we're sensitive to the problem. The problem is there's not enough godliness revealed in the world. The potential of the world is not being revealed. The potential of each and every human being is not being revealed. Says the Rebbe, the big problem is everybody else says somebody else will do it. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too hard. It's not going to help anyway. What am I going to do? I'm no different. I mean, if I was different, then the word Mashiach would have already come. That's what the Rebbe says. True, we're waiting for Mashiach. Yes, this person. But the main thing is he's supposed to bring this thing called Geula, redemption. And redemption means that all of the Jewish people return back to Hashem. Listen, little by little, it's happening in the world. We see in America this anti-Semitism is arousing. It's shaking the bowels of every leftist Jew in America, that they're all, we're against freedom, and all of a sudden the guy next to him is yelling death to the Jews, and he's saying, yeah, but I'm with you, I'm with you. No, death to the Jews except for you. No, we don't mean you. We mean the Zionists. We don't mean. All of a sudden the Jews in America are starting to get, what's really?
I've read that applications for Leah from America from a year ago at this time are up 5 to 6 times. People are speaking very seriously about getting their wealth out of America in the next 2 years.
Yeah, for sure. But they tried it in France and it didn't work. They tried to come here and the Medina is not ready to accept them. It was like 1/3 to run back to. Okay, that's a different problem. Our problem is not this. Forget about this. Forget about talking about this. Our problem now, says the Rebbe, is recognizing the real problem. The real problem is that godliness is not revealed here. Godliness is not a, how do you say, a practical topic in the world. And little by little, it'll be more practical. Little by little, it has to be more practical.
I'm pretty sure it goes back to the words of attitude.
Say what? I don't hear you.
Like that? Okay.
You spoke about attitude. Imagine if everybody's attitude was that every minute of his life he had to be serving Hashem and or the Rebbe and or his Rav and or his wife. And he had to do Torah b'mitzvot to do that. He knows what he has to do. And in the meantime, before anybody can get to that perfection or be enough on the road, because he's never going to be perfect, in the meantime, he's serving himself. And if he serves himself, he takes away space from serving Hashem and the others. So if you say, you know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to buy an ice cream cone because it tastes really good. I have time. I completed my studies, etc., etc. You can't think of something where you can serve Hashem better than going out and having an ice cream cone?
1 minute. Just 1 minute. This is a class in Chassidus. Chassidus teaches us that ice cream cones are not bad, and that you exactly the opposite. If by buying an ice cream cone it makes you feel more happy, it gives you a little bit calmness, it makes you feel like a human being, you can do it. Buy an ice cream cone, but don't buy 2. Don't buy 3.
Right.
That's the point. You want to buy ice cream cones, not bad to buy an ice cream. You have a Harley Davidson motorcycle. You want to ride the
Harley Israel.
You want it right. You want to drive your Harley Davidson. Okay, first of all, make a calculation in your mind. Talk to somebody about it. Right? Is driving my Harley, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Could be a very good thing. It could be that you'll reveal other Jews that are also driving Harleys, and they'll all get together. There's a big group of them here in right down the road from me in Israel. I go and speak to them once in a while. That might be a good thing, right? But don't drive on Shabbos. Maybe you can convince one of them not to drive. And there's also, you go to buy an ice cream cone. Maybe you'll meet somebody when you go to buy. The person who's there, you say, God bless you, sells it to you. You say a good word to them. In other words, you don't have to be, how do you say, put into a box.
No, I'm not going in that direction. I should not have used the word ice cream cone.
Oh, okay. You're touching home there with ice cream. No, I don't like ice cream.
Anything when you, in your mind,
right,
could have thought first about serving Hashem. And it's so easy, by the way, if you think about Torah b'mitzvot all day. And it's a mitzvah to eat an ice cream cone at a given moment. But how about if you say, oh, it's also a mitzvah to go out to eat, even to a kosher restaurant. The time it takes to get in the car and to get out of the car and all the rest of the stuff. And you're not spending time directly serving Hashem, you're serving yourself. And that's the attitude that has to change, because we have the attitude of serving ourselves first and foremost. It's part of our nature. And I'm sure that's why Hashem created us that way. Because if he created us that we would only want to serve him, what's the sense of making the world?
That's right.
He created us so that we could see the contrast and then act on it. Make that famous choice between the two equal things. And, thank God. As far as I'm concerned,
that's right. Listen, a very basic thing, and maybe I didn't get this over, is being positive, happiness. Happiness. Everything has to be done in a way of simple. The basis of Judaism we learned from Abraham says Judaism really began when Abraham took his son to sacrifice him. That was really the beginning of Judaism. That was the 10th trial. And in the Tanya, it says that the main thing of that trial was not that Abraham did it. That was also very important. But the main thing was that he did it with joy, with quickness, that he was happy to do what Hashem wants. Even though it was the most impossible and impossibly difficult and horrendous thing for Abraham to do, for any Jewish father to do to his son, for any human being father to do to his son. But he did it that happiness. So there always has to be that attitude of not being, I don't like to say it, but not being a misnagid. It's very, very important not to be. I heard a long story from Rabbi Ashkenazi, Olav Shalom, that they used to say that if you have a question and there's no one to ask a misnagid and do the opposite. A misnagid is a person that he learns the Torah and he takes everything to make him miserable. Everything is to make him miserable. And the more miserable he is, the bigger a mitzvah it is, because naturally a person, he gets pleasure from the world. And they say, there's nothing to get pleasure from the world. You have to get pleasure only after you die. And the sooner you die, maybe the better. And just, then. And Chassidus says exactly the opposite, that the only time you can really be happy is by serving Hashem in the world. And you can serve Hashem in everything. But you're right what you say. You're right what the person says. And so therefore, you always have to be in your mind, am I doing this just for myself, or am I doing it for, Hashem? And then you can also start to reassess, what exactly do I think Hashem is, that I'm serving Hashem? What exactly is this Hashem? He's some sort of a big accountant that sits up in heaven and sees what I do and says to the angels, oh, look at that, look what he did, write that down, right? Or is it that Hashem just loves us so much and so intensely that all he wants to do is even one little good thing, and he's tremendously happy. And if we do 2 good things, he's even happier with it. So that gives you a positive attitude. Every person that you meet is like a new experience. It's like a fresh experience. Everything that happens in the world, you see a miracle. To appreciate the world, to appreciate Hashem, that's also part of it. To appreciate an ice cream cone. And if you make a mistake, a person makes a mistake, he does a sin. So, okay, it's not the end of the world. It's a terrible thing. It should break your heart, but it should break your heart for 5 seconds. And the rest of the time you think, man, I don't want to do that again. I'm not going to do that again. And you're not going to get me down. Yetzer Hora, I'm going to serve you, Hashem, with happiness no matter what. And it's an ongoing process. Understand? It's an ongoing process. It's not that all of a sudden I reached, the nirvana or something like that. I've made it. I am now at the level of, Rabbi Zundel. My teacher told me that the difference between a Chassid and a Misnagid, I don't know if there really are such things as Misnagid nowadays. I don't really know if there is such thing. The ideas of Chassidut, Ein Od Milvado and serving Hashem b'simcha, it's pretty much everywhere. You hear I saw once a video of the pupils of Panovich, which that was supposed to be like the bastion of it, and they were singing a Chabad song. What was it? I think, yeah, and it was beautiful. And they were really singing, but they were happy, They're just Jews, they're alive. There's maybe a small group.
What exactly is Misnagin?
Misnagdim were the people that opposed Chassidut. They were the ones that opposed the whole Chassidic movement. They thought it was too wild. It was too much emphasis on being happy, too much emphasis on love and fear. Love mainly, loving God and being and serving God with joy. And all these spooky ideas in Chassidut, we're learning about the Sfirot and stuff like that. It was this. Originally, it started with the Alter Rebbe, that they put the Alter Rebbe in prison because of it. There was just too much for them; they couldn't take it. But anyway, he told me that a misnagid is a person that he's like a picture. He's a picture, and that he got a framework, and that he wants to be within this framework. He's got a picture of his teacher or somebody. His rabbi, and he just wants to be just like that, to be just like a picture, frozen like the picture, that he does what he's supposed to do, and then he gets through this world. And a chassid, it says that sometimes he falls out, sometimes he falls in, sometimes he falls out, sometimes he falls in, and in the end he falls in. After all, you make mistakes. In order to live a life, what can we do? We have to, it says the lazy person saves money on shoes, never goes outside, doesn't wear his shoes out. So you have to, sometimes take little chances. You have to sometimes, but it has to be within the realm of Torah. So you make a mistake. Happens. Terrible thing. No one's encouraged to make them. But on the other hand, that's a human being. Shigagos miyavin says. All right, let's go, rabbis. Can we go on? Let us learn now a sikha from Matos Umase.